Hey guys, Dylan here. Before the podcast, just wanted to express all of our support for the Black Lives Matter movement and say on behalf of everyone here at Overly Animated that Black Lives Matter. I want to direct you guys to blacklivesmatter.card.co with 2 R's in card for ways you can help. And see the podcast description for more links that we think are important for everyone to check out. We talk a little bit about related topics later in this Kipo podcast, but mostly just about Kipo the show. So here's the podcast. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Kipo and the Age of Wonerbeasts, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Delaney Stovall.
Hey, y'all.
Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
And Alex Bonilla.
Hey.
Yes, Kipo is back after only a few months, and we're talking Kipo at the Age of Wonerbeasts Season 2, which dropped on Netflix yesterday. 10 episodes, it's all out. We previously podcasted on Kipo Season 1. Check that out. We also have an interview with the creators, so check out all that out on our Kipo feed. Search for Overly Animated Kipo. Our YouTube is youtube.com/overlyanimated and overlyanimated.com for all of our other links. Very excited to be getting into Kipo here. I think we're going to go full into spoilers here because not sure who's trying to get the lowdown on Kipo from listening to the Season 2 pod, but maybe people are. So if you're wondering, I would say just go watch Kipo. It's great. We won't spoil our thoughts on this season, but we all really like Season 1. So go check out Kipo and the Age of Wonerbeasts on Netflix, Seasons 1 and 2, 20 episodes. Then come back and listen. Full spoiler warning starting now for all of Kipo Season 2. So we have just binged this show yesterday or today. Delaney, overall thoughts on Kipo Season 2 and what were your reactions to it?
I have a lot of feelings. I'm really emotional about Kipo right now. I didn't cry, but I was really close to crying at several points. This show is just so beautiful and it's telling such important stories. And Kipo is such a precious being and I want to protect her from everything. And, oh my god, this show is doing things that I wasn't anticipating it doing. And I thought this was going to be the last season, so I was really, I was like, oh my god, there's going to be a season 3. So, I didn't know that, because I completely came into the season expecting it to be the last season, and so I was really wasn't really prepared for, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I'm really happy with it, and I think this show just has really solid episodes, and then I think Kipo's relationship to Scarlemagne / Hugo was really meaningful and impactful. I just think Kipo's attitude towards Kipo loves everybody, and some people only love mutes, some people only love humans, but Kipo loves everyone, regardless if they're a human or a mute, and that's a really meaningful message. And everything she does, there was that one line that everyone's been sharing on Twitter where they're at brunch and she's like, I don't care that they don't care because I care. And I love her so much. And I think Kipo's even doing something that Steven Universe maybe not necessarily failed to do, but didn't go quite there because Steven had humanoid people. Crystal gems aren't human, but they're not animals either. But here we're watching the series where Kipo believes in the sanctity of all life, and I think that's really great. So I'm just really enjoying it, and Kipo is just my child.
Oh yeah, so Kipo, DreamWorks being really cagey about how many seasons there are of Kipo. So we're kind of is Season 2 the last season? But now it seems like there will be a Season 3, but they've not confirmed that. But we assume so. And I think Season 3 will be the last season, but I said that about last season too. So I think they're done with production. Is what I'm basing that on. I think they're done with production. Season 3 could be out soon, also, which would be great. Okay, Michelle.
Still would only be 30 episodes, which is relatively short.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think this show, half-hour episodes and feels, in some ways, maybe feels like a shorter journey than a lot of shows are, but I don't know. We can talk about that.
But it's making use of every episode, which, is also very, very nice. I don't mind lean storytelling if it's all used for useful, impactful purposes. And I feel like that's definitely what this show's been doing. So if there's only 3 seasons, like 3 seasons of good television is, always going to be a good thing.
Always going to be a good thing. So Michelle, did you think this was a good season of television, season 2?
Yes, I was really impressed and a little surprised by some of the direction that this season took. And I think they really went hard in some aspects that totally blew me away. And I will admit, I did cry at the very end.
When did you cry? Right at the end? Okay.
In episode 10, when Wolf starts to sing the song.
Yeah.
I cried half because it was very emotional and half because, like, it felt so right that Wolf was the one doing that. And that Wolf's bond with Kipo is just such a particular bond. And I feel like even though we didn't spend a ton of time on that this season, as much as we did the first season, the moments they did have together were so good. And Wolf's one of my favorite characters. So I was just really happy to see, like, this moment of, like, her trying to be vulnerable for the sake of her friend and having it pay off so well. So that's when I cried. Very well deserved for tears. I think I said this in the Discord last night after I finished watching, and I do think it's true that, like, one of my favorite things in the world is when, like, a movie or a season of something, it just, like, really surprises you by how strong it is. And the best thing that a sequel or a second season or any following season can really do is just, like, not only live up to that, but try to expand on all the really good elements of that first show in more fleshed out, more interesting, more compelling, like, deeper ways. And I feel like that's, like, the thing that really impressed me the most about season 2 of Kipo, because I feel like there were so many things that were planted. Like, I never in a million years would have assumed that, even that, like, a lullaby song Kipo sings, the What We Have Is You, like, on a level, it's, like, a nice song. It's like, oh, it's a thing she shares with her dad. But then it becomes so much more important once we realize who the Mega Monkey has been the whole time. And that becomes, like, a link to her mom at the same time. And that was such a shock. And just, like, the fact that, Scarlemagne isn't the biggest bad anymore. There's something way more dangerous and threatening than him out there that also feels a lot more realistic in some ways, which is maybe where part of the fear really comes from in this newer villain. And I mean, the fact that, like, there's so many shades of gray with just, like, even, like, Leo and the Scarlemagne situation, and Kipo's, like, doing her best to navigate this, but there are no easy right or wrong answers about how people acted in the moment of desperation, like, all that stuff is so good. And I feel like it's really nice. And even though, like, I do think we didn't, like, we didn't travel a ton we met some new characters, but not nearly as much as the first season. I feel like that was all in service to really jumping headfirst into some more of the story progression of this show, which feels like a natural thing for a second season to do. Like, you spend the first season laying out all these foundations, but then you actively go back to old characters in the second season. You add a couple new ones, but when you are reintroduced to characters, you immediately, like, it's so great to see, like, where Jamak's coming from now. And, like, Mulholland, like, oh my god, who would have imagined he'd come back and be so useful? Like, all that stuff is just so well integrated into the second season, and all those things were built up really nicely. And so I'm just super impressed with everything they managed to do in these 10 episodes, and it makes me extremely excited about season 3. Because it's hard to do something really well once. It's even harder to do something better the second time. But I feel like I have a lot of trust and faith in this team at this point that they're really going to stick the landing moving forward. And I'm just really impressed, like, all around with all the stuff they did season 2.
Awesome. Hit on a lot of things I think we're going to get into, and a lot of reasons why season was impressive. So that's really good. Alex, are you also impressed by season 2?
Well, I I'd emphasize that it was a fun ride. It's still a solid show. I will say that personally, I was not as blown away by this season as I was by season one. Like I remember like raving about like the first season, whereas like this season, like it's still good. Like especially the stuff like that Michelle hit with the relationship between Kipo and Wolf was still very solid. The twist with the mom was very well done. On the other hand, I feel like there's a lot of like nits that I ended up feeling like I needed to pick. Like why is the world feeling smaller? Like we're not seeing as many new characters, and I like that about the first season that we were all over the place, and now we're reusing characters. Some reused very well, but like others, like I would disagree with being excited about Jamak because I wanted so much more from him.
He's a fan favorite.
Yeah. Also, like the shift in villain, Scarlemagne is great. I loved him in the first season, and I think that seeing the other side of him is done well here. I'm a little hesitant about switching over to Dr. Amelia for reasons we'll get into, but like that part of the story in the second half of the season did not really blow me away there, and like. And also like a couple of characters like Benson and like he doesn't get. I don't feel like he gets as much to do in here. So like and just stuff that felt a little bit more predictable than usual, like the whole anchor thing. Like you can see that coming from a mile away. That it's just friends and family of now, but yeah, so like it was a fun ride, but like when I compare it to like how excited I was after watching season one, after season two, I'm left with a bit more of like, like that was okay. Well, like I guess because season one had set expectations so high, so maybe that's part of this that I'm not as excited about it. But there are positives, as I'll probably jump in as we talk about the different parts of it. But yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes, but I was a bit not confused, but like I'm just a bit hesitant about the direction that it's going in.
Okay. And fair, I guess, and we can talk about and speculate with Dr. Amelia. I think you've touched on a lot of what I've seen as like the people who are questioning whether everyone will like it as much or whether they themselves maybe didn't like it as much. It's not as much of like this travel show meeting all these mutes as season one was. So I think if you prefer that, I could totally see that. Personally, season two I found very impressive. I was really blown away by the narrative this season. I think loved Kipo season one. I think it was like really, really special. I mean, listen to our first podcast for how excited we were about this. And then season two, the biggest thing I was looking for was, I think I didn't as much like we're just going around meeting different mutes. So I was like excited to delve into deeper storytelling. And this is like totally what the season was. So it was exactly what I feel like we needed from Kipo, at least from my perspective. And, just get some of the best, animated storytelling we've seen in the past few years this season has. I feel like the Scarlemagne backstory stuff, all the flashbacks that are carefully woven throughout the season, I think really incredible stuff. I think it culminates in episode 8, which is kind of the Scarlemagne origins episode. I think that's a really special episode. Was looking for a kind of tentpole Kipo episode too, and I feel like we got that this season with that episode. There's certain things I did react to this season different than season one. Season one, I'm like, oh my god, the animation and the use of music and the like fluidity. Yes. I really didn't react that way to this season. So I think I was like, I don't know if it's because I'm used to it. So I feel like it's like we were really excited, and now like we hadn't seen anything like Kipo in a while, and here it is, and it's incredible. And now it's like, okay, it's season 2 of Kipo. So I do feel like I'm not sure what the standouts like crazy animation scenes are. We can talk about that. I have a few candidates, I guess, but that scene in season 1 where they're like flying through the skyscrapers and stuff. Yeah. Like there's nothing that like comes to that. I agree with that. Yeah. So I was hugely impressed by the storytelling. Less as impressed this season with the art and the music. And not that it wasn't as good, I just reacted that way, So it's possible I personally prefer season 1, just the excitement I had to it. I think like maybe I personally prefer, but I think this is probably a better season overall, like the way it's constructed. I think the writing is so much better that I think it kind of has to be better. So I agree that some
honestly,
characters
makes me think.
Yeah.
Maybe part of that is just like depending on expectations too. Like when we were all going into season 1, we didn't expect like music to be such a big, unique part of that show. We didn't expect the animation to be so amazing and to sync so well with the music. So like it was easy to be super impressed and blown away by that. But going into season 2, we already kind of expect that. So it's easier to get blown away by the story and the narrative now because that wasn't the thing we paid attention to the most the first time round.
Yeah, I can't really separate expectations versus the kind of an objective analysis at this point. I do
think there is these seasons are extremely different, and I noticed like the music is much less like overstated this season, which I think is on purpose because of the plot. And especially like granted, I mean, it's not that the music isn't incredible, it is. And like every time you hear the bass drop when an episode starts, you're like, oh, what's happening? So like they're still building that expectation, and like the music behind when Kipo goes Mega Jaguar for the first time, and she's chasing after her mom. And then also, we're talking about big animation moments. For me, it was when the Chevre sisters had their prophecy. Like, I think the music behind them and like their eyes glowing, and like I know they're really creepy goats, but like I thought that was a really stunning visual, and they did it twice. So I really I think there are nuggets of like really standout moments, but I do think overall this is like, it's kind of season 1's flashy, but season 2 is just so well constructed. And like it's like all the pieces are coming together. It's hard to be blown away by animation when like you were kind of blown away the first time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe season 1 is flashier.
Also, it's Studio Mirror. It's gorgeous. We all know this.
It's always gorgeous.
We get it. We get it. Studio Mirror. You make stuff really pretty.
Yeah, and I feel like we utilize Studio Mirror really well. Towards the end of the season. Go ahead, Michelle.
I do agree that I do think they're intentionally trying to make the music support the narrative and maybe the visuals more, and not a way that necessarily subdues it a lot, but enough that like the music itself isn't necessarily what stands out. It's like what it means to, the visuals and like the narrative going on. Because I'll just say like Scarlett / Hugo's like mournful piano ballad in episode 8, like that is like not a bombastic song, but you just like you really get his struggle being in that room and being stuck, being bored while being so intelligent and wanting more from life and feeling so helpless to change anything going on. And like I feel like that was such a very well used musical, not like it's very different from all the like musical numbers we got in the first season. But I feel like he was so well placed, and it did such a good job exemplifying his characterization at the time. And like, it really stood out to me for that reason. So strong agree. I think like they're just choosing their moments, and they're pushing more for story stuff. So having music stand out isn't necessarily as much a priority right now, but it's always going to be good. It's still going to be like the same level of quality as we come to expect from the first season, I'd say.
And season 1 was, we talked about, it's exploratory. It's the travel log. They go everywhere. And there's a lot more, like one of my first thoughts is the opening sequence with Benson. Like there are a lot more sequences in season 1 where there is no dialogue. There is like, it's just music and the animation, and it's gorgeous. There's not a lot of that in this season, which because it's so much more story driven. So I think that's part of it too. Like there are a lot of moments where you actually get to, like, they make you sit and take it all in, which I think is another reason why there's a lot more amazement in season 1 versus season 2, because season 1, they're literally making you stop and watch it and listen to the music. Season 2, we don't have as many thoughtful moments. There's a lot of scenes in season 1, like where they're sitting on the billboard, when they're like, they'll just be in the city. And there's just not as much of that in season 2 because there's so much they have to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's
urgent.
It's kind of like, I mean, it's not similar narratively because like these are not the same shows at all, but it's similar in how Gravity Falls changed. It
does feel a lot Gravity Falls season 1 versus season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point of comparison. Alex, did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just going to like Delaney mentioned the Chevre sisters. I think that's one part that feels very season one in terms of like these like weird new characters, or like throwing a wrench into the story, and they're animated pretty interestingly, and they have like weird music going on. So like that felt very in line with like what I am used to from Kipo. Whereas like going forward, like it feels a bit like it feels a bit more muted compared to how all out they go in the Chevre episode.
Yeah, I think the bats in episode 7 may be similar to that. And then I think the episode 7 is this intro with Benson and the flashback with the bats. Maybe that's supposed to be the episode 2, season 1 kind of Benson intro, which we think that scene's so incredible. But it's really not as good. So I guess maybe where some of the adult excitement is coming from. And I feel that to a certain way, but I also don't want to downplay my excitement. So I'll say a few things. One is, whenever I say on this podcast a lot, more complex serialized narrative is what I'm looking for from shows. This is Kipo season 2. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So this season did it. How could I be?
Every time Dylan mentions this, we are citing this specific
you could now
podcast.
Reference the way Kipo transitioned from seasons 1 to 2 as what I'm looking for. And then second thing, I think this is the best TV season of the year so far. So I don't want to downplay that.
She-Ra? No.
She-Ra this or She-Ra? They're one or two.
This is season 2 of Kipo. Like, keep that in mind.
I'm just comparing individual seasons. No, I think it's this or She-Ra last season, or for me. Like, I think they're right up there together. That good. And I think Kipo combined seasons 1 and 2 together, maybe even season 3, like very much a front runner for a show of the year at the end of the day. So I don't know. Like, I think it's interesting discussion so far about kind of some of the strengths and comparisons to season 1 of Kipo. But let's dive into some of the things season 2 is focused on. I think this season becomes about Scarlemagne. I feel like that's the leading topic. Scarlemagne's backstory, like we culminate him as a villain. I don't know. We're expecting to take down Scarlemagne this season, and were we expecting to sympathize so much with him? I think all that is built up pretty incredibly throughout the season. Michelle, were you how'd you feel about Scarlemagne coming in, and what were those emotions like as you watched season 2?
I was very afraid of Scarlemagne coming in. I didn't have a lot of expectations because to me he was just so unhinged, and that's like one of the most dangerous kind of characters, the ones where you can't really guess what they're gonna do because they're a little bit crazy. Like in their own hype, I mean, we did have that bit about Leo recognizing him and calling him Hugo, which implied like a backstory, but like I didn't know they were going to go so hard into it. I am so impressed with what they've done with Scarlemagne, because like that episode, I think it was episode 8, right? That's just like pretty much full flashback of him. Yeah. Like
it's literally called Sympathy for the Mandrill. They knew what they were doing.
That's great
they got it. They got the sympathy. And I like that even before that, we'd had flashbacks from Kipo reading the journal log where her parents mention his name. So it's like not a total surprise when he finally reveals his backstory. We've kind of been expecting it by that point. And it's so heartbreaking. I find it very heartbreaking. He becomes a very sentient, like very intelligent being, and he doesn't have a lot of control over his situation. The fact that he brings up that he was a child when all this happened was something that really like shocked me, because it really forced you to think about his humanity, like really, like he was maybe younger than Kipo, maybe Kipo's age, like really still a kid when he had to figure out everything on his own and just learn to survive. And based on the fact that he'd been trapped like in this like creepy experiment bunker for his whole life up till then, I'm not surprised that he did eventually resort to using his pheromones to control people, because he's only known 2-ish good people in his life, and then he thought that they abandoned him. So I mean, like, that's just not a great place to be making the rest of your life decisions. Like I said before, like I loved his song. I thought it was so well placed. It really explained a lot of like his struggles with having this new intelligence and not being able to do anything with it, and not having the kind of life he wants to live. But I also love the fact that while we get all this sympathy and Kipo she even kind of calls her dad out about it. She like sides with Scarlemagne to an extent. Like she still loves her dad. That's never like in question. But she's kind of like, Dad, like how could you leave him? That is objectively terrible. And I'm gonna hug him because I feel so sorry that happened to him, even though it's not my fault. But then again, the fact that Scarlemagne, like as he starts opening up to Kipo, it would have been so crazy for him to turn so quick, and I think the show really knows that. And so the fact that, like, in his own Scarlemagne twisted way, he's like, oh yeah, I will give everyone a choice. But really, it's not a choice because it makes it a life or death choice. So there's really only one solution if you want to stay alive. And, like, he's trying to, like, explain that to Kipo. He's like, oh yeah, they can say they want to leave and I'll melt them into gold, or they can just be my subjects. It's a great choice. And Kipo's like, no. And you can see, like, he kind of doesn't get that's not even a good choice. Like, I think, like, he genuinely still has a lot of work to do before he can be the kind of reformed that Kipo is, like, hoping he can be. So I love where we left him in the season. I love that, like, he was shook that, you know, Kipo really believes in him. He was shook that they didn't leave him for dead, even though he literally did, like, kind of try to kill them all, or at least allowed it to happen when they were trapped in the Coliseum. Like, he's in a jail. The Timbercats are going to look after him. Like, he had...
Michelle, are you saying Scarlemagne Demption Season 3? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, well, I mean,
yes.
I think it's a significant possibility. Jamak was the starter pack on Redemption, and I think Scarlemagne...
Starter pack.
2.0. Yeah, I think Scarlemagne...
That's honestly true, though.
Scarlemagne has done a lot worse things than Jamak, so it's going to take longer, and he's going to have to face more consequences that are equal to the amount of wrong he has done others. But I think, like, you can see the gears turning in his brain even in that last moment when he sees Kipo through, like, the bars of the cage, and he's like, you risked being, like, a giant jaguar forever to save all these mutes, and that's crazy to me, and I'm gonna think about that. So I love it. I love that they gave him so much sympathy, but they also, like, are certainly holding him accountable to the path his life has taken him up to this point, while still leaving that chance of further redemption in the air for the next season. I feel like that's a difficult balance to walk, and we've talked about other shows that maybe didn't handle that as good or as believably, but I feel like this was wonderful with Scarlemagne. I did not see it coming, but I mean, that's my favorite episode. The flashback episode, it was so strong and it was so shocking to get it, and I think it was really well done. So I mean, Scarlemagne still scares me, but I think their treatment of him in the show, like, is 100% amazing so far.
Can't believe you relegated your fave Jamak to starter pack for the redemption. He's only step one.
He is starter pack. He's not all the way there either, but he's mostly there.
We'll talk about Jamak later on, because he's not that important to the season.
I know, sadly.
It's very sadly. Delaney, what are your Scarlemagne kind of reactions? Where'd you come in on him, and where do you end up?
So, you know, he's the big bad when you come in to season 2, and I'm just like, it's Scarlemagne. Like, he's the weird, like, he wants to be king, and he's very Louis the 14th. And then we get his backstory where he loves the book about, like, these kings and, like, this royal court, and he's fascinated with the idea of it. I mean, sympathy for the mandrill, and I mean, there were moments sprinkled throughout the season, and, like, like Michelle said, there was a drop, you know, in season 1 where you're like, Hugo, who's, like, what's going on? And so yeah, I think it was supremely satisfying. Like, we got the backstory I wanted, like, that I was like, not just like it's a good backstory, but like the depth of it. And that's really what and like my favorite thing about season 2 is Kipo and Scarlemagne's relationship. And like when Scarlemagne calls her like his little sister, like, I think that's great. Like, it goes along with like with the whole narrative of like mutes and humans are equal, and so it's really, and like, and Kipo's like, yeah, we're siblings. So like, it's really, and I know Scarlemagne has his little messed up, like, twisted like view of it, but like he does seem like legitimately to care about Kipo, and it's really, I think it's been a really interesting journey, and I I mean, Kipo is so pure and great, and it's hard not to imagine, from the beginning, to imagine a redemption for Scarlemagne, but then to see it happen so naturally, and for Kipo, like, and also it helps that, like, this tragic backstory, but, like, Kipo is like, you need a hug. Like, I'm sorry that this happened. She makes him a present.
Yeah, the hug.
And then my favorite part is when he's trying to figure out what song he wants to play when he enters, and she helps him. Like, that's so cute. And, like, the fact that they're both just giant nerds, like, it's great.
Yeah, them playing piano together too.
It's so sweet.
And the board games.
And the board game, it's so funny. Like,
I will be Corn Dog King.
Yeah, no, that was, like, I really enjoyed that a lot. Like, I think it just, like, part of, like, the central part of Scarlemagne's redemption is Kipo, and Kipo is just such a wonderful, pure character that it's hard not to be like, I love this so much. But then also, like, you want Scarlemagne to be redeemed. Like, you feel so bad for him. Like, because we talk, season 1 Scarlemagne is very much your, like, surface level villain. Like, you get what he's going for, you understand, and he's you don't blame him obviously he's not doing good things, but you're like, yeah, humans suck. Like,
yeah, for real.
That base level of understanding that, like, yeah, humans suck. But then now you're like, man, humans really sucked, in particular to Hugo. Like, we get it, man. Like, totally understand. Like, and also, like, I think the other scene that really cinched it was, one, it was horrible. Like, Leo had promised him, and that whole sequence where he's not coming, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to cry. And then when they run into each other and he's like, oh, you made sure to get your kid, but not me, your first kid. Like, it's really, so I think, and especially the reaction, like, that's my blanket. It's really tough. And it's really easy to see, like, what's happened to Scarlemagne and, like, all the things that he's been through. So I think it was, I just really enjoyed it a lot. And I definitely, he's getting redeemed in season 3, totally. Like, and, when he was so stunned that they had rescued him, and then the fact that Kipo she was willing to make that ultimate sacrifice. So I think it's just great. Like, it's great.
Good, yeah. I love the stuff about Kipo and Scarlemagne.
They're adorable.
So incredible at the end
so
of the season.
And he even considers Leo his dad still, which, like, despite everything that's happened, is still, like, a very interesting insight into Scarlemagne. Like, still considers that his family. As much as he's mad at his dad right now, he still thinks that's his dad. Like, that means a lot.
Yeah, that's
and he immediately calls the Mega Monkey song when he finds out.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting psyche that we get into, I think, at that.
Yeah,
season.
definitely.
His perspective, Delaney talked about it a little. Alex, what did you think of Scarlemagne throughout the season?
Yeah, Michelle and Delaney mostly covered every single part of his journey here. I'll say I love season 1, Scarlemagne, Crazy King villain. That's my jam with these these shows, and I think that season 2 carries it well and at the same time allows you to sympathize for how he got there. It does hammer in the cruelty of the humans. That montage where they're making him run the treadmill is pretty sad, and, like, seeing him, like, beg as he puts his hand on the glass walls, So those details help. And I also love Kipo, appealing to his interests. Like, she's choosing that board game for a reason, because that appeals to what Scarlemagne likes in an effort to bond with him, So, like, it's reinforcing Kipo's whole philosophy of dealing with everyone who causes problems. It's like, well, maybe we just need to, like, spend time with them to get them to empathize with other people, And so, like, seeing that happen slowly with Scarlemagne is done pretty well. And so when you get to that ending where he's like voicing his surprise that Kipo would do that, like, it's setting up for a logical place for season 3 where Scarlemagne, like, comes around. I will say that, like, immediately after Scarlemagne says that, Leo is like, well, it hurts to know that you were right, So it's like Leo's giving up right after we see Scarlemagne.
And Kipo kind of agrees with that, yeah.
It's a very weird cut, but so Scarlemagne is still good. I'd say he's one of my favorite characters of this season, and so solid work for Hugo.
Yeah, is he going to go by Hugo or Scarlemagne in season 3 if he's redeemed? I think that's the question.
I think he should stay with Scarlet. I mean, he's built this identity, but he doesn't have to have the name,
He
define who he is.
Yeah, I think so. He chose this for himself.
A third name, a new name.
Yeah, I think a new name that isn't just because he's angry.
Scargo.
Scars on his face.
Just Scar.
Scar.
Yeah, just
Scargo.
Just be the Lion King villain. In terms of the ending of it's interesting the last 2 minutes of the season, but they also just witnessed him trying to kill everyone. I think that's kind of what that's in response.
That's why he's still in a jail. I mean, that's why.
That's why they're and Kipo is like, I'm gonna get through to him, and like she doesn't, and so she's pretty discouraged by that.
Yeah, she says to her dad, like, I'm sorry, you were right. Like she's willing to think that maybe he can't change for the better. I think he still is, but like Kipo's accepting that maybe you can't change everyone's mind.
For me and Scarlemagne, I did not care about Scarlemagne coming into the season. I think if you listen to season 1 podcast, like I like the aesthetic and stuff, but season 1 he's pretty standard and not like really involved with what's going on too much. And then and there's just no depth. And this season completely turns me around on him. He's suddenly one of the best characters in the show, and just the amount of work they put into this character, I think is really incredible. The show like has the ability to completely turn me around on certain characters and elements, and I think that's just really impressive. Scarlemagne top of that list because he was incredible this season. I mean, like combined seasons 1 and 2, who's better, Scarlemagne or Jamak? Right? they're both incredible. Ooh. I don't even know how you pick. So the show has really good supporting characters, I would say, and excited to get into Kipo as well. But before that, I gotta do this towards the top of the podcast because it's an amazing topic. I need to compare Scarlemagne to another character from one of our favorite shows.
Oh God! Oh God!
Who are you going to choose?
Oh, how do you not know? Like it's.
I'm scared.
Watching episode 8, all I could think of is, wow, Scarlemagne is Catra.
Yep. How did you know?
What?
I was going to go for
I didn't see that coming.
Lotor. Don't bring up Lotor. Don't.
I'm not in Dylan's brain. That's how.
Look. Well, here's the thing. I feel like there's a very obvious comparison between Scarlemagne and Catra, which is that they both. Their trauma is based on a broken promise that a significant person to them makes. Right?
Suddenly.
There's two like I promise that moment in episode 8 and again, and Leo is kind of Isadora, not in the same way, but he's I assume not. Presumably not. But it's so interesting that we get this. I mean, there's other comparisons with the season of Kipo and some and different shows, but like this is such a clear parallel for me to things She-Ra is doing, and these characters who you feel for them based on a broken promise. I mean, I think in Catra's case, like a perceived broken promise, Adora wanted her to come with her. Both have really extenuating circumstances. Leo, like, did he even have an opportunity? But he does choose Kipo and leaves. Maybe he could have made an effort. And the way that's like unraveled, this is kind of getting to the flashback subject too, but the way like this season parses information to the audience, it just becomes more tragic, and you start to learn motivations as they're going, and it's like, oh, Leo's doing great, and then you start to realize like, oh, that maybe that wasn't so good, and you're seeing it through Scarlemagne's perspective, which Kipo is empathizing with. But the Catra comparison really interesting. Maybe that means he is redeemed in the final season. That's kind of how that works, I guess, if we're going by the Catra model.
And we're talking about also like these characters who they are so hurt that they just want like, and they also want similar things. And so I think that's also like, these are characters who are both driven by a lack of love, a lack of companionship, and like they feel like no one wants them, and they have similar attitudes. Like Scarlemagne says, he's like, no one ever chooses me. And so I think they have very similar motivations, not just because of the broken promise, but because of like what they want. And so
they're both manifesting this trauma and like trying to gain as much power as they can.
And they ultimately like, this is kind of not, I think this moment of trying to turn everyone into gold is very much the Catra pulling the lever in She-Ra to end the universe. So it's very interesting to like the scale of these things. But I do think Scarlemagne Redemption, and also like we're in this similar place. Like Leo rescued Hugo. And so now like granted, Scarlemagne's not quite in like the same situation, in that like he's still a prisoner, but this isn't like he hasn't redeemed himself yet. Like Catra like made she did what, like, she was doing her final act, like, in her mind, and then it was like, JK, you don't get to die. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see. It's very interesting that this is like we'll say this is like the theme of the year, like.
What, trauma, broken promises, the redemption?
Feelings of abandonment.
Yeah.
Like, just the desire for love, plain and simple, because that did make me think, like, what makes Dr. Amelia such a more concerning villain? It's like, yeah, like, she isn't driven by a need for love. She's driven by straight up wanting to, like, take the autonomy away from animals because she doesn't.
You say that until season 3 makes us empathize with Dr.
No, I
don't
know. I really don't think they're going to, though.
She's the exact same position as Scarlemagne was last season,
right?
Except she's not as fun.
No, because like
both.
Like Delaney said, like, even in season 1, it's like we kind of like on a level like agreed with Scarlemagne, like, yeah, like humans did a lot of terrible things to the planet, and it makes sense that you're mad at them right now and you want to change it and do things a different way. Like, whereas with Dr. Amelia, like, none of us agree with what she wants to do. That seems also, like a really bad idea.
Also, like, so not only are both of these shows are about love anyway, like, duh, like Shira and Kipo, like, this is the driving forces of these shows. But, like, also with Dr. Amelia, like, how do you meet Kipo and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna kill her? Like, what's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Maybe it's a person Kipo can't get through.
Enslave her mother, who is a giant monkey, for 13 years
who
for her own
you
ends.
know her.
Yeah,
you
like,
know
she was
her.
a coworker. Like, Dr. Amelia is way scary because she's willing to, like, just use people like that in a way that feels like a little more irredeemable, frankly. That's why I'm scared of her.
Okay, we're talking about Dr. Amelia now, full on. So I agree that we don't agree with her perspective, but I do think there's a backbone of legitimacy to, like, these mutes are dangerous and are going to kill us all, and she's trying to respond to that. So I think that there's some level of understanding based on her motives that we at least connect with in that regard.
She's extremely cruel.
The song thing, I think that's tough to get past. It's like, oh, she was the one that had the control necklace around them.
Well, that moment where, like, when you the show does this on purpose, and, like, my fiance was like, "You're wrong" the whole time. Like, at first we were like, "Is that?" You know, everyone was like, "Is that Kipo's mom?"
And
then you're like,
yes.
But then you're like, "Oh my god!" And I mean, before they actually did the reveal, we were like, "Her mom's the monkey," and then like, and then of course, and then at that moment, the twist where, you know, suddenly the doctor becomes extremely cruel, and so I think that's kind of like, it's just so hard to, like, we get it, like, it's dangerous for humans to live on the surface, but then but the mutes are also changing, like, this whole, like, they have these perceptions of each other.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, when you were saying, like, well, yeah, like, it kind of makes sense that Dr. Amelia would be afraid of the mutants because, like, they could hurt humans, but it's like anyone could hurt anyone if you make them the enemy. Like, that's not specific to the mutes, clearly. So I feel like that entire mindset's, like, the big problem with her agenda. Like, her own people could be her enemy if she doesn't play her cards right. Like, she's willing to dispose of them if they oppose her. She's already proven that, which is a much different thing than just like, this subset of people really hurt me as a child and I'm lashing out because I don't know how to find love, which is Scarlemagne's whole deal. Like, it seems more like deeply embedded and truly more terrifying to me. I don't think Dr. Amelia is going to change her mind about how she feels, you know?
I mean, I agree with you in terms of, like, my personal perspective. I think if our world became like the Kipo world, I would say basically every single person in power across every country would basically react to Dr. Amelia is reacting to
absolutely.
things.
They absolutely.
Yeah.
And many of them are terrible, so yes.
Checks out. Yeah. Checks out. But it's a related praise I want to give to Kipo related to Dr. Amelia and her motivations. I think the show, this follows with season 2 as well, this season 1 as well, but the show is just very logically satisfying from the audience's perspective. I feel like the show brings up things which makes sense as you're watching, which is easier said than done. A lot of shows, like, it's harder to tap into, like, the audience is going to say, well, this should happen if this, like, Mulholland is their friend now. Okay, Mulholland's pretty overpowered. Maybe this is the way to beat Scarlet. That's what I was thinking as I was watching the season, and then it happens, you know?
Okay, when he showed up, I literally paused because my fiance hasn't seen, like, season one, like, all of season one, and I was like, stuff's about to get weird.
Accurate.
As soon as he showed up. But no, definitely. I think that's part of what makes the show so narratively, like, compelling in season 2.
I agree. And here's another example. I found the fact
that everyone comes back. It's nice.
Yeah.
That's true. We'll talk about it as a separate talk, but I agree. I think it handles pretty well, at least bringing a lot of elements from season 1 in. But related to Dr. Amelia, the motivation of these humans to, like, reverse engineer the mutation in order to figure out what happens, so they could reverse it, but also just, like, trying to figure out what made them mutate. That's, for me, is extremely satisfying based on, like, what we know about their world. Like, I feel like the writers of the show, like, are presented with this kind of crazy world. Even Scarlet, that's another thing I want to say about Scarlet. Scarlet's just like a Victorian themed crazy monkey that they, like, figure out, like, oh, what's the backstory for him? And they turn out an incredible backstory. Like, I assume none of that was planned from the start, and it just feels really amazing and natural. And it's still a little ridiculous. Like, oh, he's reading a book on kings, and he looks in the mirror and but they sell those moments, even though they're ridiculous, right?
That's it.
I feel like it really sells those moments. And so it's like, okay, here's a post-apocalyptic world where there's these giant animals. Like, okay, in this situation, what would the humans do? They would try to figure out what happened and what they could do with that. So I think that works really well. And the thing I said in season 1 related to, like, the logical consistency is, like, Kipo being purple has plot purpose versus just being an aesthetic choice, and it absolutely continues this season, which is continually very satisfying that we keep engaging with this question of, like, why Kipo is the way she is, and it's such a fundamental part of where the show is going.
And then they also even do it with like, I know it's stupid. Granted, it was a really fun episode, and there are some really great moments in it too. But, like, the theaters, like, it's so silly, but, like, it makes sense that, like, oh, well, what are the other mutes doing? Like, what is mute society doing reacting to Kipo? And there's this play.
Yeah, that felt very, very consistent, too. And then Kipo has this reputation. All that, I feel like all that checked out, yeah.
Right. And it was just fun. Play episodes are always great.
Yeah, we got in episode 13 of the show, we got their Ember Island Players episode.
Amazing, magical.
Choice,
yeah.
Where's the beach episode? Where is it?
We'll see if we get Dr. Amelia. So the way I feel like one of the things to talk about, there's the way the season handles her, and that we don't know who she is, I think, until 6 or around there.
Right.
And she's just these masked figures, and they're kind of like these, you assume they're good guys because they're opposing Scarlet, and they're these fun, opposing, like, the oppressor kind of type of forces, and you're kind of, like, on their side, and then it's like, whoa, okay, she's not good. And I think it's kind of interesting how all that is handled. I almost wish we got a little bit more info on her before the ending of the season. Like, I wish they parsed it out a little bit, but it's certainly kind of, like, all culminates in a very fun way with her. I feel like a big scene with her is the sword fight scene with Wolf. I think that's a big Dr. Amelia scene.
I was like, you're fighting a child.
Smashed her.
She's also a young child.
Upsetting. Yeah,
it's not just a kid. Like, one, fighting a 13-year-old isn't okay, but you were fighting, like, a significantly young child, and, like, one, she's beating you. 2, like, you suck. Like, you looked at this kid and you're like, you're going to be a challenge. Like, really, what's wrong with you? Like.
Well, I mean, that part's obvious. She's, like, the only warrior person there, Wolf. So
that's true.
Yeah.
She can hold her own.
She's like, okay, here's Kelsey stepping up for the.
Like,
yeah.
Nice babies. This is what it felt like. Okay, like, you're fighting a kid. What's wrong with you?
I mean, I want to know to the rest of her.
I want to know why Dr. Amelia is trained in combat. In addition to was she the leader of their old bunker, and why she's also a doctor / scientist? Like, why? Why is she all those things?
It's interesting. So I think something they didn't explore as much was, like, it looks like they did live in a borough that was just scientists.
That's possible. We don't really see anyone
other
than the scientists.
So it is interesting if she was, like, not only, like, the leader of the scientists, but therefore the leader of the borough.
I guess if they're only scientists, she'd be the whole leader of the Burrow. I assumed we only saw the science division of the Burrow, and so she's not the leader of the whole Burrow. She's just the leader of the science division. That's also possible, but we don't really know.
I like that we don't have answers to any of these questions because I think it wouldn't have been a very good priority because Scarlemagne redemption was top of mind for this season.
Well, I didn't think
complicating that with too much information on a new villain introduced like halfway through, I don't think is a good idea. So I'd rather save that till season 3 and focus more on Scarlemagne for this, you know?
Well, I didn't think we were going to go back to the old Burrow. That was shocking.
Yeah.
Like, we were going to go find everything we got with in Fungus, I wasn't ready for. Like, I was like, oh, we're getting, like, we have the book, we got a photo, like, we got all of this backstory. And, like, we actually found, like, her parents' old Burrow. So, like, I think they did a really, like, good job, like, weaving everything together. But I do think, you know, it's also, I think this series kind of like, this show isn't meant to be watched in 3 seasons. Like, it doesn't really feel that way. Like, or maybe it's just...
You're saying it connects more?
Yeah, like, because the way it does this is like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel like it follows a like traditional season structure. Like, or maybe it's so traditional and we're not used to it, like the whole ending every season on a cliffhanger. Like, but it's so weird because like everything flows really well, but it doesn't feel right in this like season 1, season 2, season 3 structure. Like, you know, we get to Scarlemagne, and then now like in the middle of season 2, we're introduced to
They see the villain. It's pretty fun. It's kind of like Kuvira in
exactly.
In
that's exactly. So like it's really interesting how this is like weaving in. But even then, I feel like Kuvira was like dropped like so like it was such
it was just a hint. Amelia is much more essential part of the season.
Well, Amelia is becoming the villain while Scarlemagne's losing. So like I think it was
during the season. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's a really interesting season structure. So like it's just like. One, it's a great story, and also like it's not that's you know in Avatar, Ozai's the big bad, and then Azula's getting increasingly worse, but like they're both the villain. But here, like we're having like one villain unseated while the new villain takes their place.
It's so more really, Korra in its treatment of how the villains.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Alex isn't crazy about Dr. Amelia, as he said. I don't feel super passionately one way or the other about Dr. Amelia. It's more just exciting for season 3.
Well, I think she's a satisfying villain for being like
her perspective.
Well, she's satisfying in that she's such a bad villain, and that like.
Yes. Like a bad person.
Like it's like when you're watching a show and they start fighting the Nazis and you're like, yeah, fight the Nazis.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's how this feels.
That's how
like she wants to kill Kipo. She sucks. Like that kind of like she like I mean, it's very satisfying. Like as a villain.
Yeah, I generally like this type of villain. The woman like cutthroat like either scientist or like leader like I think this is a becoming such I feel like it's a YA kind of trope villain.
Oh yeah, Hunger Games for sure did this.
Oh, she's literally the villain from Divergent.
No, that's what I was thinking of as I said it. She's the Divergent villain. Yeah, no, it's exactly what I was thinking of.
It is very YA.
I think it's a good archetype with the villain. I think the general thing of like Scarlemagne like wants to like reclaim the world for the mutes and get rid of all the humans. She wants to get rid of all the mutes and reclaim the worlds for the humans. It's kind of the opposing side of.
Well, it's also one of those like. It's like I mean I don't want to say Thanos because Thanos was like so deeply flawed, but like and also terrible. But like when you look at Scarlemagne, we were talking about it. We're like, yeah, humans suck. Like maybe all mutes should just be in charge anyway. And so then, like, meanwhile, we're like, no, humans suck. You're wrong, Dr. Amelia. Like, you're bad.
Yeah. So I think mostly with Dr. Amelia, like we could debate like, should the season focus more or less, or should it? I think it's more of like we'll see how this next.
I'm not excited about like one. I hate the leader of Kipo's Burrow. Like he is the worst. Like I hate him.
He was not in the season much.
I hate him. But like every time I have to see his face, it makes me mad. And also like we're gearing into like it's going to be that Burrow versus Kipo.
I was surprised by how quickly they turned to Dr. Amelia's side, but then again, I mean, they were snatched up and almost imprisoned with pheromone control. So like, I get why they would change so quickly, but it was still like discomforting to see that kind of just mob mentality thinking, more or less.
I'm so glad Roberto ran away.
Yeah, he was like the one.
He was like, we gotta go. He's like, come on.
Because he already met Kipo, and
it's
Kipo has her own powers.
Okay, we can talk about Kipo. I think that's a major thing.
Yeah.
Very, what Alex described, very Steven universe type of
yes.
power, yeah. I think Kipo is a similar-ish character. I know we could compare her to Aang, and before him, Nausicaa.
Yeah, I was literally, I've been waiting this whole podcast to be like, Kipo's Nausicaa.
I mean, Dr. Amelia is kind of like that general lady from Nausicaa.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, she's not as sympathetic yet.
No,
so
not yet.
I think there's something to bring up here, though. Like, one thing that occurred to me during the flashback with the journal sequences is like, so they intentionally made their daughter to be like a mega mute with the like explicit, at least like Song had an explicit desire that she would be the answer to all of their problems and would just fix the world, essentially. One thing I really appreciated this season doubling down on is like you had characters specifically call out like Benson a couple times, say like, you know, this 13-year-old has like the weight of the world on her shoulders. Like, this is so much responsibility and it's a lot of pressure. And the fact that they're talking about that shouldn't be overlooked, because just because Kipo might be in a very special position to actually make all this happen and make mutes and humans coexist as the end goal, that is an obscene amount of pressure to put on a child. And I don't think it's a fair amount of pressure. And even if that's what ends up happening, like, I'd rather they discuss that for what it is and acknowledge it, because like that is so much to expect of anyone, especially one person who's not even an adult yet. So well, that's why I say, like, in terms of like the graying of learning about even her family, like I think it's a little messed up that Song would just expect so much of her unborn child, like just because she's excited about the science of it, because like those implications for Kipo are incredibly tough. You know, and no one's been a mega mute hybrid before. You know, she didn't ask for that. It's a very dangerous thing to do. And even though she has the anchors to like stop her from, you know, losing control of herself, there is no guarantee for that. And it's just like those layers I appreciate, because there is no right or wrong, but it does make me more concerned about Kipo moving forward.
Well, it's like that was something that they didn't really address it this season. They did in bits and pieces. Like,
yeah, they mentioned it at least.
Well, what I mean is they don't really, like, there's a scene in Fungus, I can't remember if it's part 1 or part 2, where she's like, "Why was a science experiment? That's so cool." And like they're like, yeah. And so like I'm hoping we get more into, because like when Dr. Amelia goes and confronts Song, she's like, "Oh my God, did you do this to your kid?" And so like, granted, Dr. Amelia sucks. But she made some good points.
But she's not wrong, yeah.
But she's not wrong. Because, like, obviously Kipo's great and she's happy and she thinks it's really cool she can turn into a jaguar. But it's, like, deeply messed up what her parents did. And so it's one of those things that, like, I'm curious if we're really going to address it. Because, like, this isn't just, like, it's not like Kipo, one, has chosen to be the hero. Like, she has come into her own and she has done, like, she did things before she knew she was the purple jaguar. Like, she was talking, like, she was already doing Kipo things because she's Kipo. But, like, there's still that, like, this is super messed up that you, like, because it's not just this whole, like, you have a destiny. It's not like she was literally created to do this.
Made for this reason.
Like, she was literally, like, she's, like, it's messed up. And so, like, it's, I'm curious, I'm hoping we get more, because, like you said, we've gotten into more gray areas, like Leo, like, they've already thrown Leo under the bus for like stuff he's done. So I'm curious if they're going to do more in season 3, like maybe
with Song.
Not just Song though. I think maybe also this exploration with, because we understand Song and Leo's perspective. Like they love mutes, and they obviously love Kipo, and they loved Hugo, and like they have good intentions, but what they did is deeply messed up. And so I'm curious to see, like, maybe as we get more into like Dr. Amelia, if we're going to like explore more of like well, what Dr. Amelia thinks and does is wrong, but also what happened to Kipo is not okay either. And so also kind of like dealing with that, because like it's super messed up.
I mean, honestly, it reminds me of Steven more than anything, because Rose created Steven to be a hybrid too, maybe with the purpose of him taking the reins from her and like fixing all her message, which is a separate thing. But it's like this idea of like, oh, my children can like make the world better, and that just insane amount of expectation. Like, it's true that Kipo did, like, she was more or less the hero before she found out she was a mute, but like regardless of that, the expectation for one person to take the weight of the world on their shoulders, even if they gladly accept it, is not like great. And I hope they talk about that, because like outside of Steven and Korra and like Aang, honestly, I can't think of a lot of other shows that really, like, we love seeing hero journeys and seeing like heroes come into their own and take on that responsibility. But much less do we see them like really grapple with like the amount of pressure and craziness of those expectations.
Well, at least in Avatar and Korra, like, it's not a single person being like, you're in charge. Like, it's at least it's like this innate like spirit thing where like you are the Avatar. You were born. So you just have to. You are the Avatar.
It's your duty. Yeah.
And like, you know, we're not going to talk about Korra because I'm gonna get really mad about it. But like, at least at one time there were the past lives. I'm like so triggered about it right now. Anyway, like, you know, there's a
specific aspect of Korra, to be clear.
Specific aspect of Korra, but like, you know, there's this like, you know, there's help. There is something to help them. There's the White Lotus. Like, there's all that. But then they literally in a lab were just like, oh, we're just gonna kind of like mess with our kid, and then like, and obviously they couldn't have anticipated all the things that happened. Like, but that's the other thing too, though. Like, they didn't anticipate side effects of Song, but like, but you did that to your child. Like, at least Song had the,
she had a choice. She at least knew it was an option going in.
Oh my god!
I mean, it's kind of like. It is kind of like Adora too, honestly. Like, because at least Adora, like, a lot of her thing was like, yeah, she willingly wanted to be the martyr and the hero. She loved having a job and being told what to do. But it took like everyone else consistently telling her like, yo, rely on your friends. Like, you have a community to help you. Like, you don't have to be the one who always does this. And Catra, like, more or less saved the world as much as, like, I love that, like, it wasn't just all on Adora's shoulders at the very end. So I hope, like, we've built up, like, you know, the anchor is her friends and family. I hope that Kipo, like, comes to rely on them even more, because a lot of times she does just, like, she's impulsive and she will just kind of take charge, and, like, they're fine for her to do that. But I'd like to see, like, you know, them act more as a unit too, because
also,
like,
all the adults in Kipo are useless.
I know, they're all
every single one of them.
Useless.
This year with Steven Universe and She-Ra, I think tells me that people are being more aware about how to write these hero characters in terms of like trying to show the balance of the pressure that comes with it. So I would hope, that'd be good if Kipo season 3 went along with that, because I agree that season 2 doesn't really deal with that right now. But also I'd say that Leo has raised Kipo, and we don't really get the sense that Kipo like knows that mission until reading this book. So I'll say a small point for Leo that it doesn't seem that Kipo was raised with this with this in mind.
That's true.
So
yeah, I think a lot of people you guys focused on specific aspects of this, but with Kipo kind of being a science experiment and the morality of that, with regardless of the expectations placed upon her. And for the most part, the season doesn't engage with it in terms of Kipo's perspective. She seems okay with it, and I would expect her to be in more of a natural place to engage with that next season, where she has Leo to actually talk to for a while. Maybe once Mom comes back, talk that out with Mom too. But in terms of like the season not engaging with it being morally questionable, I think Leo for sure is kind of painted as morally gray as time goes on by this season. So I think you kind of like see this as more and more as in conjunction with seeing Scarlemagne's perspective, you probably see this move from Leo as not so great. But Song, I think, probably mostly unscathed so far. You don't really see Grey in Song yet, and I assume season 3 would address that. Maybe she would need to not be a monkey first.
Also, I would just point out with the hybrid situation, it's notable that the doctor uses. I'm pretty sure she uses the word "you've infected humanity." Yeah. So like we're also dealing with like purity stuff and yeah. So I don't know how much to go with criticizing the hybridization when like that's the angle we're coming at from opponents in this universe.
Yeah, both could be. I mean, that could be wrong, and then they could be wrong to do it to the kid in the first place, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that, like, Kipo didn't have a choice, and it's not even just that she didn't have a choice, but, like, they assumed that her existing as a hybrid would help resolve the conflict between humans and mutants, period. And that's, like, the part that seems like the most egregious to me.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything...
And we can go into it, too, like, the fact that they were experimenting... Which they found out, like, when they experimented on Hugo, and they discovered, like, they were like, we're terrible. What we're doing is bad. Mm-hmm. But then it's also unclear if what they think is bad is taking away that agency. But at the same time, like, Hugo didn't choose to get agency, and it's one of those weird, like, we're treading on weird stuff right now, like.
Well, yeah, philosophical stuff. Like once you've given somebody agency, then like, what's the right to take it away?
Right. Taking it away, bad. But then on top of that, also like it was not your right in the first place to do all the stuff they're doing anyway.
Yeah, complicated question.
Very complicated.
The muting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure to what extent the season was engaging too much thematically with that yet. We could see what more. I mean, certainly, I think it posits a lot of questions through this specific backstory that we're seeing. Yeah. And it's an interesting type of discussions.
I definitely think the mythology of Kipo has gotten it's gotten a lot more complicated than anticipated, which isn't bad. Like, I think it's really interesting. What are we going to do? Like the plot, the plot thickens, like literally it does. Like this goes from just being a simple mute human, like to like there's other moral implications of what's been happening. Like, and the humans are no longer passive, like they've done things. So it'll be interesting to see what the ramifications of everything and Kipo's part in it, not just because she's a victim, but also because like what Kipo's going to do to, solve it.
Other aspects of Kipo, I mean, this is where we started with Kipo, just in terms of her being the Jaguar. We see her turn into the Mega Jaguar.
I was really sad that I wanted at least once them to do the Purple Jaguar song again. Like, I just
did not do the Purple Jaguar song.
Wanted it, and it didn't happen, and that's okay. Like, Eyes on Fire, Heroes on Fire is great song, but like, I just wanted Purple Jaguar just once.
Yeah, it turns into the big thing, and then she turns to Super Mega Jaguar.
Yeah, Super Mega Jaguar was amazing.
Multiple tails.
I'll just say, I know we brought this up a little bit last season, but like, it has been so long since I've seen like an animated cat that was female that didn't specifically have like alterations to look like inherently feminine. That like, I was just so happy that Kipo just looked like a giant.
She was just a jaguar,
bulky cat. Because that's what a big giant mutant jaguar would look like. Like, she looks so, like, genderless in a way. I appreciate that so much, It honestly means a lot when you see so many, like, Lion King lions that just, like, So, I had to say it because it was so good. She just looked scary and ferocious and amazing, and that's all you need. That's
she's running in the forest. So
yeah, it's some great imagery with Kipo being the Jaguar. It's very satisfying. I feel like the transformations and stuff.
Also, the in between transformations, like when just like her arms and her ears, or when she just changed her nose, I like lost my mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
It's so good. A+.
Yeah, and I guess that relates to all the anchor stuff. We don't have time to get into a lot, but that's a big part of the season 2. Alex expressed criticism of it in the finale.
Oh, you could see it. You could see it from like...
You just see it coming. That's all.
I agree. It's kind of standard finale.
But it always feels good.
Yeah.
And whenever it's like, it's my friends and my family. That's right. Don't it feel good?
Yeah, plus, like, being able to, I love that they surprised us so much this season, but being able to plant seeds that a reasonable person can interpret and follow, like, is also good payoff, I'd say. Like, neither of those is bad.
Yeah, there hasn't really been we can talk about the mom twist, but every twist seems seeded very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the mom
at
twist
least.
is like, it's so seeded. Like the fact that season 1, and then when she sings to her again in this season, and then like her bracelet, it was really messed up. I didn't cry watching this season, but I almost cried at like 3 separate points, and this was one of those points where I was like, oh my god, it's her mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, just her singing to her mom, knowing who she actually is the first time. You just get like this big close up of the mom's like mouth and Kipo like looking up at her. Like that was a very tender moment. I feel like this show does tender really well when it wants to.
Yeah, I think it was a great reveal, and it felt very believable, and all the moments between the Mega Monkey and Kipo, and that was the Mega Monkey song attacked the burrow. That's why Kipo had escaped in the first place. We can get into that and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of
it's crazy.
She was being controlled by a necklace.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like the use of it's a very prominent mutant. It's like, oh, it's more than a mutant. It's Kipo's mom, and I hope we get more into it next season.
That's why it's like when she sang the song in the first season, I'm like, this is just a random nonsense that a song would work on this giant monkey. But then now knowing that it's like, oh, her mom knows that dang song, and that's why she responded to it. Like that's such a good layer building. Like I was so happy that came around this season and made like way more sense now.
Also, the scene of her, like, in the difference, like, where she's running and fighting in this season, singing the song, was really good.
Yeah.
We get the reveal that she coordinated with mom with the
that was
so good. Okay,
it was so smart.
It's just.
I love that. Like, it subverts our expectation of Kipo because we assume, oh, she's just going to go talk to Skylar and try to win his heart over. That's her whole plan. Probably won't work. It's like, oh, JK, that was like the frosting on top of the actual cake plan. That was so smart and it totally worked. Like, I love that.
Say the canteen, like, got me. Like, that's the one part that I wasn't like, I didn't like, they get the canteen and I'm like, I don't like, why do we care? And then like, so that was good.
I'll also say one scene I did really enjoy was the intro to the last episode where Mulholland is talking to the mom.
Oh my
God, and she's like struggling to speak, like because she's been lost for so long. I think that they portrayed that really really well. Like.
And then when she's like, can you tell Kipo that mom loves her? I was like, I'm gonna cry.
But like they read it in such a struggling way that like it feels like this is how someone who hasn't thought like this in like years would probably like try to find their voice again, So like I enjoyed how that scene was done. Also the callback to the environment of like the cave. That's like how Kipo saw her past, so like that all fit really well.
That scene was good. I think they continue to make great use of the intros throughout the season. Sometimes
that.
related to the episode, times I'm a little slightly unrelated. But
I love that, seeing how they're gonna like make it work every time.
Yeah, I think in season 1, it's like mostly unrelated from Kipo, and then this season it blends together with the plot going on a lot more.
It does feel very on the nose with like, hey, pay attention. This is gonna mean something in this episode. Which like if that worked for you, good. I got annoyed with it for a bit. It's like just like the heavy usage of flashbacks, like right next to a scene. We're like, oh, you need this information to understand what's going to happen next.
Yeah, they definitely cut quickly.
So like I understand if you enjoy that as like part of like the stronger narrative, but I got a bit annoyed with that method after a while.
After watching RWBY for several years, I get really
come on, just no.
I really appreciate when like. I appreciate it when a show tells me something. Like,
yeah, I agree.
This week your standards are too low, Delaney.
No, you don't understand. I enjoy parsing things out. I really do. But then it's also nice to like. One, I don't think Kipo like overly tells you stuff. Like, I think they do a good job of like, yeah, you can figure stuff out. But then also, I do think they do a good job of like, they throw stuff in there. It's just strong storytelling. That's all. Like, it's just nice.
everything they give you, because we have so many questions, right? There's still so many things we're speculating on. Clearly, we don't have all the answers, but they chose to give us enough information, and they showed us things in a relatively objective way, and they leave it to us to interpret that good or bad or gray or anywhere in between. I feel like that's the best kind of compromise. Like, if you choose flashbacks that are very intentional and are meant to lead you to make certain conclusions, or at least give you enough to go off of to then like have more questions later, that's a really nice balance. And giving too little of that, it makes like anything going on not matter as much, because it feels kind of hypothetical since we haven't seen it play out, you know? It's like
being
tangible.
predictable isn't necessarily a bad thing. And like, because you know,
chosen.
Yeah, and if it's like well structured. And like, yes, did I figure out that song was the monkey before they told me on the show? Yes. Was it still an incredible twist? Yes. Yeah. Also, I almost cried watching it anyway. Like,
that's good. Yeah, I think the execution can be good, and
between like Kipo like realizing, and then you seeing Scarlemagne like overpower her, and then like her be so enraged that's that final push for her to reach full Jaguar. Like, that's just a really good boarded payoff right there. That's what helps make the moment so good, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's good, and yeah, I think intros are really good. I think flashbacks, I could see people reacting differently to use, but
it was different. We didn't have as many flashbacks in season one.
Very
just to like the Burrow and her dad, I guess, in season one, right?
Yeah. Okay. 2 topics related to audience perspective on the show, and then get into some quick hits to where there's some topics we're not gonna be able to hit a lot on. But
we're gonna have to have 4 more people on podcasts. Oh no.
No, we're not. We're doing this now. Okay. Okay. First, I feel like people are reacting really positively to Kipo. I'll explain this take after, but here you go. Let me give the take. Avatar, Korra, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Kipo, and the Age of Wonderbeasts. There you go. I think Kipo is going to be considered a kind of classic cartoon alongside all these other shows.
Why isn't She-Ra on your list?
She-Ra, those are shows that have had some. I guess Steven just ended, but that have cemented their legacies more. Steven's been airing for like
BoJack
8 years, you know. Yeah, the kids' cartoons throw BoJack. I feel that way about BoJack and Rick and Morty. I don't think this isn't necessarily my take on the best shows, but I feel like there's certain shows that are just like really beloved years after the fact. I feel like Kipo is just a lock. Like the combination of quality, the general the general enjoyment. Like, I feel like it's a very wide ranging appeal. That's what I want to say about it. So I think kind of that combination, the fact that it's really good and it's really unique. This is going to be a show that's revisited for a long time. I feel like we can already tell in the middle of its run.
Definitely. And I think also like its similarities, just, you know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is so good. And and a lot of things, I mean, they're, you know, these aren't like thematically, they're not similar, but like there are a lot of features of Into the Spider-Verse and Kipo that I think are part of what makes them so good. And I think as Into the Spider-Verse is like literally everyone's like, this is the best movie ever, which is true, that I think this also applies to Kipo. Like the music, and also there isn't a show like Kipo. There also aren't shows like Kipo with the representation that Kipo has. Like, we have all of our main characters are characters of color. I don't mean Kipo's purple, but Kipo's also purple. But like we have a still, I mean, obviously Kipo is Song and Leo's child, but they also did like science stuff, so like who knows? At the very least, Kipo is a Black Korean child. And then we have our 2 other Black main characters, and then Leo, her dad, and then hopefully we'll get Song back. Right now she's a monkey, but like, and then also Benson's gay. Like, it's great. And then we have Benson's love interest, Troy. That's his name, right? Troy.
Yeah. Troy.
And we also have a lot of positive representation of all of these characters, like Benson talking to Troy's dad, and Troy's dad talking to Benson, and like, it's great.
Yeah. So I mean that's a good point about Kipo's diversity, which we talked a lot about in the first podcast, and we'll get into more too in this one. But I brought up like the fact that Kipo is getting really positive reaction now. I think it's really excited. It's really easy to get excited by.
And
Kipo
also
at the moment.
Netflix has like showcased Kipo, like unfortunately due to recent events, but it's also great that they're showcasing Kipo in this way.
Yeah, so it's a good transition into what I want to talk about. So it's Netflix. It's on Netflix's representation matters, which I have mixed feelings about. So let's talk about
That's
that.
fair.
Kipo really diverse. Very excited to get about Kipo right now. I also think it's weird. It's weird having Kipo right now. This big time of social unrest. Any kind of like fun kids cartoons generally just getting into shows right now. I think it can be a little bit of a weird feeling. On the other hand, it feels fitting, right, that this is one of the blackest cartoons on television. This and Craig of the Creek, and they're both airing right now in terms of the characters.
And they're both such positive forces.
Yeah.
For black character representation. So it does feel fitting. And Kipo does have all these great black characters, as Delaney highlighted. I think it's incredible. And I think to a certain extent, there's diversity on the Kipo crew. I know that in season 1, there are 2 black directors. I think there's 1 this season. But I get more mixed feelings when I look at the crew as a whole. And this relates more to the industry in general. But I will caveat this with I don't know too many specifics about the Kipo crew. I don't know who everyone is involved in, so I apologize if I get anything wrong. But I do know the show's created by 2 white men. And I believe the show has no black writers.
Really?
Feels really bad right now. In addition, the 2 music the supervisors are white, I think, for a show that featured many black artists, featuring a lot of hip hop in the show. So I look at the crew of Kipo, and while it's probably better than a lot of shows, I feel this is emblematic of the industry as a whole, where we get shows. We're starting to get more and more of shows with black main characters. Specifically, Kipo and Craig, a lot of black main characters, but both shows are created by white men. Mm-hmm. And most shows in the industry don't feature a lot of black artists in their crew, black creatives in general. In addition to all this, there's been a lot of talk on animation Twitter about underpaying black artists, underpaying everyone in general. DreamWorks, I think, has taken the brunt of this criticism. Kipo is a DreamWorks show. DreamWorks a lot about how they're exploiting union loopholes surrounding streaming shows to underpay their artists around this time, and this I think just overall there's a clear need to address racism in the animation industry. I think there's a clear conversation about this. I think we're not the right people to get into this in depth. So this is to the extent I want to get into this. But in conclusion to what I say, I think it's great that there are shows with multiple black leads, but we're in dire need for more black created shows and more black artists on every show in general.
Specifically on the production side, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so it's I don't know, maybe my enthusiasm seems a little dulled talking about Kipo. I think it's the best season of TV of the year, but it's also just it's so a lot of complicated feelings.
Well, it's hard. The show has great representation, but to think that 2 white dudes made it, it's that doesn't make it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just it doesn't feel good. Why can't black creatives and black artists make what they want to make? Why aren't we seeing that? That's what feels so it's so unsatisfying. And it's especially, one of the issues I have with Central Park is I want to watch it, but the fact that the voice actors are white is extremely upsetting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's one character that is biracial and is played by Kirsten Bell, and it's really bad racist casting.
And I'm what the heck?
That's another topic. Yeah, I will say Kipo features a great diverse voicing cast.
Yes,
and many black incredible voice actors. So I think that part they nailed. And this isn't like a Kipo call-out post. I mean, the fact that
No.
the fact that the writers' room has no black writers, that's real bad to me.
Yeah.
But this is emblematic of the whole industry, and this
Right.
is we need an industry-wide awakening to revolution to what these endemic problems in the industry. I don't know if this is a good transition. Speaking of the incredible voice cast, the incredible black actors on this cast. I want to highlight Dave. We haven't talked at all about Dave. I feel like Dion Cole as Dave is like my voice acting MVP across every show. Like I hate the Dave type of character, and yet Dave is so funny this season.
Dave is so funny.
When he is doing the old man voice, and
he was good in season 1 too. But the fact that I love this character is so crazy, and I feel like it's Dion Cole. Everything he says is hilarious in the show.
Yeah, like in Fun Gus, Dave is amazing.
Yeah, like when he's the old man, it's like that was like peak Dave for me, because it's like he's like he has that whole like I'm an old man in my senile hallucinating thing, and that's how everyone's treating him. But like he plays it so straight, and it's such a good moment, and it's like all of his versions of age are so unique, but like the old man one really stood out in that whole sequence, and it was so
shockingly
funny.
You like the old man
one. It was
one. That's
so funny. It's like there's a face in that wall. Sure, there is. Dave.
Yeah,
sure
you're right. He's really good there. Yeah,
so
I feel like the funniest part. Not to keep praising episode 8, which I do think is incredible, but the episode 8 is a B plot with with Dave, and it's like, oh, don't ruin. It's amazing. But no, it's actually like the funniest part of the season. I feel like this B plot with the Dave swallowed the bomb, and he has to dramatically step over the crack. I was dying, and his it's like you paused like that whole thing.
Yeah, I really liked like this one scene just really stuck out to me with Dave when Dave's like, all right, we're gonna stop for lunch on the way back, and then she'll never know, and then they're like, yeah, that was the plan, Dave. Like that was like that the delivery on Dave's line was just my favorite. Like that scene was so funny to me because they were just like, yeah, other than stopping for lunch, that was the plan. And Dave's like, so you're saying I made the plan better? Like it's so good.
Alex, so you're saying you've been a Dave stan all along, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I thought Dave was fun all the time, and I enjoy. And people say his stuff his action stuff is kind of disgusting because of his molting. I've always loved it. So like, finally, welcome to the bandwagon.
The only thing that makes me uncomfortable is when he rips his arms off to stick them in his ears. That's the only, and he's done that. He does that so many times. I'm like, stop it, Dave. That's the one thing that upsets me. Everything else is okay, but like that is not okay.
When he's molting to get away from the lava, like that whole gag, honestly, I thought was so hilarious, and it goes through like several stages, but it's so good.
Yeah, and the only reason I say I don't typically like the Dave character, it's like as a one-note gag surrounding at its core this character, and yet they do find really creative ways in the season.
Yeah, they do.
To continually use it.
My favorite is like when he's all holding them and you think they're running from something, and he's like, I made it 2 whole blocks.
You're like, good job, you're improving.
It's so funny. And they're like, yeah, you did it carrying all of this. You're doing so great. It's so funny.
Yeah. Mandu, on the other hand, I feel like season 1 was better for Mandu. Mandu is this big heroic moment in the second to last episode when he defeats Dr. Amelia. I don't know. I wasn't crazy about all
when
Mandu's
he stabbed her in the leg, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But the whole build up to the episode is like, hey guys, remember Mandu? We don't care about him anymore. We're setting him up for it's like another like really telegraphing what they're gonna do with Mandu.
Well, I'm glad they did it without being like, there wasn't really a moment in the middle where they were like we didn't have to have like this whole conversation about it. Like they just did it, which is what I appreciated.
I did really like that Mandu was kind of in awe of the adult pig mutants and wanted to be like them. So we got this straw as fake little tusks, and like the big one looks at it and kind of rubs it like, good job, yeah, you're trying. We see you, little champ. Super cute.
Yeah, I don't know if I needed that, but it's okay. Well, more justice for Mandu, season 3. Yeah, I don't know what the right move with this character is at this point. It's hard to handle some of these animal companion characters,
especially because it doesn't talk. So like it gets, especially in this season, which is way more dialogue heavy than season 1. It's easy to.
It makes sense. The comedy animal companion would not be as well handled in the big story season.
For the record, when they met Mulholland again, and Mandu immediately was like, "Please,
Oh,
please,
I died at that. Yeah,
Please,
yeah.
I need the Cheetah World, please.
Like,
Why did we flash back to that like
I want a
dream
Cheetah
sequence?
World.
because it was
Yeah.
extremely important. That's what I was about. Like
was
Dave
that
being
shit.
like anytime, I was like, no, I'm about Mandu being. And then when Mandu thought the fungus was cheese, amazing.
I've just been. That's like the song from season 1 I listened to the most that plays, and they brought it back. I love that. Yeah, it's Crumbs by Jordan Dennis. We'll talk about the use of music. I want to get to Jamak quickly because
Yes!
our favorite season 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
One episode this season, episode 3. One episode, Michelle.
He coming back. We know there's a season 3 now. He's absolutely going to join the team because
So you're not upset about the lack of Jamak.
Okay, look, they used him perfectly. They made him super coy, so you really want to see more of him because you were not sedated.
Keep him
by
wanting.
that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I want to be kept wanting because I really liked him.
Does this mean you want to see the theaters again? Because I do.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I don't. Sure, but I
Yeah,
really want to.
They've become a package deal now, Michelle.
They
thanks
are.
to
They're
this
the same.
episode.
He's with
Theaters
the
are
theater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess like I do want to see them then. Jimok was like great though. Like he showed genuine concern for Kipo and then like immediately tried to cover it up by acting like he didn't care, which is so him.
Oh, that was so
and-
good. Yeah, they were like, he's like, you brought her here. So
Yeah,
good.
they're like, oh, do you care? He's like, hey, no, I just like I don't want my gesture to be for nothing. That's all. It's so good.
The ending with Kipo's like, I thought you'd come with us, Jamak, and then he like has a moment.
He's
And
like, absolutely.
connects with Dave, who he
Absolutely.
connected with this episode, and he's like, absolutely not. Like, oh
Yeah.
my god, what a great.
That was so funny.
Also, every
That was
time-
why Jamak was there for
Yeah,
that
that's
moment.
what
I feel
you
like.
also.
Also, he's there to sassily button his jacket at every moment. Like, it's so good. Like, with his cutoff tie. And he's just
Even
like,
though he was barely in it, he still like stole that whole episode. So like, of course we're gonna see more of him.
also, when he's like,
Right.
what do y'all have against dying?
I know it's such a good line. Like, come on, we could go right now. Why are you going back there?
And he's like, oh my god, why?
Jamak, it's just a bold move because Jamak is arguably the best character in season 1.
Yes.
And then to put him in one episode this season, that is some restraint, I would say.
Yeah,
Definitely some restraint because
I-
if Jamak joins the team, I think that's we're revving up to season 3 where it's going to be so crazy how good it is because Jamak is in every episode.
yeah,
It's-
because like honestly,
Jamak had
the-
this redemption arc and he doesn't join the team. That's pretty.
Hang on, Dylan. Hang on.
but
The tables
you think
have
it's
turned
coming.
now. It's all the humans versus like 5 humans and all the mutants together. So that's
So now Jamak will be on
yes,
their side.
Jamak.
And
Okay.
also,
he was-
Jamak's going to make sure they do the right play.
that
Yeah.
too about
No
Yeah.
Kipo slander.
Oh,
Yeah.
the otters. Okay, I was like the right playbook,
That's
like
something.
to beat.
No,
Dr.
I meant literally the theaters.
literally the play.
For the record, the theaters are amazing.
Oh yeah, they're
Yeah.
fun. They're fun.
There's-
I would just like the deleted scene of Jamak returning for the final episode and pulling down his pants in front of the gold statue of the mod frogs that rejected him. I just want
Yes.
Right, we get
Oh
we
my
get
God,
the other
yes,
mod frogs.
totally
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
It was really
when the mod frogs
touching.
get what was touching? I was about to say something horrifying. So what
Oh,
was
no.
touching?
Okay, here's the thing. This is the thing. This is the really weird. Like when Scarlet Main's like, "I did it for you." It's like, oh, but that's so messed up.
Yeah, it's so
No,
messed
I
up.
was gonna say that's the most horrifying moment of the series when he golds the frogs.
Right,
Like,
right.
oh my
Well, it's
god!
totally messed up. It's
Song's
totally
hand is
messed
now
up.
gold forever. Also, we can't forget that.
Also, and then Scarlet Main's like, "Yeah, can you gild your dad?" Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Like.
Oh my god.
It was like here's the thing. Scarlet Main's messed up. But the fact that he did it for Kipo, I mean, obviously do not gild things, like living things, but it was terrifying, yes.
Yeah, like that was just his gesture and his own. Like, I love that. That's like a part. Like again, like it's gonna take more than a couple days of Kipo hanging out with him for his entire like worldview to change. So for him to struggle with these things that he assumes are great gestures and Kipo is horrified by them makes perfect sense where he is right now in his progression.
I think it'll work if he's a big part of season 3. So we need to see this. We need
Yes.
more Jamak. Okay.
More Jamak, more
move-
Scarlet Lane.
I don't think Scarlet. No, can't be more Scarlet Man than this season.
Of course, well, not like
This is the
as
most
much,
Scarlet
but just
Man.
more period.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe they'll bond. I don't know.
Maybe.
Mark was trying to create. Okay, let's keep going. This podcast going super long. But we have more things to hit on, including Troy and Benson. 90 minutes in, haven't talked about Troy and Benson. So, episode 1, big episode for Troy and Benson, and we get a kiss on the cheek.
Yes.
Get them looking at each other, right? Big moment. And then
the music.
We get throughout the season Benson we get Benson with Troy's dad trying to like have a good impression, and then Troy's dad approves.
So
and then at the last episode, Troy saves Benson. And yeah, so
also Benson is like a disaster gay.
I know. He's like awkwardly talking while the lava's literally forming around them.
And I'm like, oh my god, Benson.
We like this season as a follow-up to the Troy and Benson in season 1.
This is so good.
Yeah.
How, like, obviously, like, I don't know, like, I was excited that, one, when Benson was like, I'm gay, that's awesome. And then, like, he gets a love interest, and then now we're actually doing, like, playing the long game flirting. I'm about it.
The long game. Yeah, but there's not that long of a game. There's only going to be so many episodes.
Well, they already kissed
already. Yeah, they sprinkled it out already. It felt like more of a priority this season, and that's already really encouraging. They had several moments, and the stuff with Troy's dad was just so adorable. Like, that's such a like, oh, I really like your son. I really hope you like me. To for you to just like, give me the dad okay to go for your son. In a nice way, but like that's essentially what was happening, and it was just so adorable and cute.
Yeah, I really like that stuff. I love them in the first and last episode. I was craving more Troy in the season. We just wrote him off with him and the twins. The twins, by the way, I don't know why they're there. And
one of them's Kipo's girlfriend. Okay, I don't know which.
I said that. Did you copy that take from me? I said that yesterday in the Discord.
Oh, I did. I absolutely copied that take, but like,
okay, so that's my take.
But it's obviously the take to have.
It's that, right? So like, why are the twins there? They've done nothing. Is it just so that Troy isn't the only human we're focusing on? Are they like background fodder for Troy? But no, what if one of them's Kipo's girlfriend?
Kipo a girlfriend. That's all I ask.
We'll see. But yeah, I'd like Troy to be more part of the action in the last season. I think that's much like Jamak. Bring him back.
Well, I think we're working to this like we're gonna have our crew versus all the other humans. So.
Yeah, he's part of the crew. So, Alex.
I would just say I want more Benson in the season. Like, I think it's Kipo number 1, Wolf number 2, Dave number 3, and then Benson kind of fits.
Dave number 3. I'll get out of here.
Yeah, Dave has more stuff to do in this season than Benson does. Benson doesn't get a lot.
We haven't gotten any, like, we have deep background on all of our, except Dave, but no one cares about Dave. So, like, we need more background on Benson outside of Dave.
Yeah, I agree.
Outside of Dave and outside of Troy, because like Benson has good stuff to do when it's Benson Troy stuff, but for most of, like the middle season, like he's kind of just tagging along. Also like Benson and the Beast, like that's a decent episode for him where he has to accompany Kipo and like be like help the anchor. But like
Kipo and Benson's relationship is adorable.
Yeah, like that's still there, but for a lot of episodes, Benson is kind of just like in the background.
He's just with Dave. And it's like,
there's literally an episode where it's like he's not on screen, and then he comes back. He's the cowboy hat.
Yes.
We don't know
right.
Yeah, I think for me, other than the Troy stuff, I think the highlight with Benson is him, like Kipo not wanting to hurt him, and then him being the anchor for like him helping Kipo with the anchor in that episode. Yeah, I think all that stuff is really good with Benson. But I agree, there's a lot less than last season.
Episode 7
intro with the bats. That was kind of like the without Dave thing. I think Dave wasn't there, but
Dave was a baby. It's fine.
He took a little bit of a backseat. I think Wolf did too.
Yeah, I really wanted more Wolf. Like, I love the stuff with seeing where she was living, and the karaoke moment was super nice.
Episode 4 is the big Wolf.
Yeah, and like her singing the song to try to get Kipo to come back to them was really nice. But like, I wanted more Wolf.
Okay, episode 4 was the gayest episode without being gay.
Okay, I have a question. Are we shipping Kipo and Wolf or no?
Okay, I don't know what the age difference is.
Okay, that's my thing. That's my hold up. That's it. I'm done.
Like, that's a pretty big hold up.
We know Kipo's 13.
Yeah.
We don't know how old Wolf is, right? In show.
Wolf, and we know Benson's older.
Yeah, Benson's like 16, I think.
I don't know. Like, the thing is, like, Wolf, they could be similar in age because, like, when we see Wolf doing stuff, like she looks significantly younger.
I interpret Wolf as younger, which is why I don't ultimately ship it, but their bond is one of the highlights.
It's so good. I love them.
Yeah, that's why I want to see more of it. Like, Wolf's episode last season was, like, the episode for me. The way the Skylar Main episode was, like, the episode for me this season. But, I mean, like, I love Wolf's character, but it does sometimes bother me that she has to be the voice of reason so many times, and she's the youngest of the group, and that's just like, again, like, seems like an unfair amount of pressure for her to constantly have that role. So, like, to counter that, I want to see her, like, being able to, like, loosen up more and to enjoy things in, like, a more open way. And we got a little bit of that, but I just wish there was slightly more of it, because, like, every other time she's just, like, doing her best to keep Kipo and everyone safe and, like, being the straight man, which is, like, fine, but I feel like she deserves more than that, you know?
Wolf is apparently 10, according to outside
Just 10, okay.
So, yeah, probably not shipping that. But their bond, yeah, they're just in episode 4, they're really good. I think that's a really good episode. And then the Wolves, you mentioned Michelle Wolf singing to keep up the end. That this relationship is ending up at, like, the heart of the show.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's why I wish there was a little more. It is, like, the heart of the show. Maybe season 3
with Wolf,
come back and focus.
I think with Wolf, for me, the one thing is, like, last season, episode 9, we learned of her incredibly tragic backstory.
Yeah.
And we don't really follow up on
No.
it this season. Like, let's check in on how Wolf's doing.
I guess Wolf's doing.
Also, we broke Stalky. Like, is she okay?
Yeah, that was half her identity. She still has the wolf carcass on, but it's like, I love seeing the backstory of how, like, even as a very small child, she figured out the heart rate thing, and she helped Kipo with that. But it's like, yeah, like, her staff is gone, and that was a big part of, like, herself. So, like, I hope maybe that comes around, like, her finding a new weapon or something, maybe, for this new chapter in her life.
Yeah, she's really just Kelsey from Craig of the Creek. Like, the sword broke.
We also really hear Kelsey from the Bat voice, and that was horrifying because I couldn't.
Confusing when there's a Kelsey on the show, but it's not that Kelsey.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the mutes. Yeah, so the theaters, we talked about them. I think the main theater singing that song is really good in that episode. We talked about the Chevra sisters, the goats. They're weird.
They're weird and great.
Yeah. The bats. I really like the bats. Not a lot of the bats, but I like that they're not in it like a. They're like threatening, but only if you like go against their weird ideology. Like, they're not like antagonistic inherently.
They're in so the alien fandom. That's just they're alien nerds.
Back up on the standing. Come on, like this is what happens when you stand too hard.
One of them voiced by Noelle Wells, who plays Kelsey in Craig of the Creek. So the crossover.
Fun Gus. We got Fun Gus. I gotta say, not crazy about the Fun Gus stuff.
I was afraid of Fun Gus just because he was such a powerful child, and that's already, like, stressful. You make Fun Gus mad, he could eat you, I guess. Like, I don't know. And
a lot of good stuff in the 2 Fun Gus episodes, but the Fun
Gus himself wasn't that fun. Yeah, I agree.
I was fine until he broke free of Mulholland's control, and I was like, oh god, we need to go right now.
Oh yeah, he's dangerous.
Well, one thing I remember saying last season was, like, I wish that they did more with, like, the post-apocalyptic sense. Like, they went a little more wild with the imagery. I think in season 2, one of the things that gets closest to that is when Fungus loses control and you have, like, Kipo running away from, like, the strings of fungus that he's shooting at her. Like, that's as close as we get to, like, at being creative with your setting.
That's good. Yeah, and I think visually they did a lot interesting with that. Just the concept of Fungus, I think, is good. Cappuccino and whatever species.
Cappuccino's amazing. She's a shrimp. I love her.
She is such an amazing
littler shrimps with her. Is that the other shrimps?
Yeah, they're all shrimp.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe they're
so
like
they're mega shrimp.
I love Cappuccino.
Okay.
She's a jumbo shrimp.
Cappuccino's really good. I think she's a favorite to return. Although, and in general, the use of the old mutes, I think we very sporadically see everyone, sometimes prominently, like Mulholland. Sometimes in the background, episode 8, we traverse a lot. Like, we're seeing a flashback, so we go through a lot of the previous settings we saw. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good use of everyone. And then in the last episode, everyone's kind of there in the audience.
What matters is that we got all the Timbercats all the time. That's what matters.
Timbercats, and then there's this explicit use of the umlaut snakes in one episode, right? So
I love seeing them have a moment.
It seems like a priority to bring, at least reference a lot of stuff from season 1, bring a lot of people back. Not a lot with the Newton Wolves. They're the play characters, but and they're kind of there in the background in episode 8. Yeah, I think it's a different experience going from like quickly hitting on a lot of these people than from season 1 spending a lot of time with all of them. For me, I think this season like threaded the needle between like introducing new mutes, not doing them too much, focusing on the story, and then also bringing up characters from the past. I feel like all of that was pretty successful for me, but I think your mileage may vary.
I agree. Like I appreciate checking in. I appreciated people growing and changing and seeing some new stuff because new stuff's nice. But I feel like it was nicer to have like that mix because it felt like we were really building on characters we had previously established, which is like an extra layer of excitement and enjoyment than just constantly introducing new characters who never come back, you know?
Well, I like knowing my world.
Yeah, it's part of knowing the world is like seeing them grow and
They still spend
evolve.
time on world building. Even through this plot heavy season. Alex?
Speaking of new, I don't think we've mentioned cappuccinos yet, and she's we did, okay. But I like her. Talking shrimp. I need that.
Yeah,
she's the tough, no nonsense character.
I know,
and she's a shrimp. It's great.
Not a mute, but I also like loved Greta. She was a big part of what softened like the new antagonist for me, just because Greta seems like the Scorpia vibe of this show.
Okay,
and it's just
you can't say that because Greta is way dumber than Scorpia.
I was gonna ask like
Scorpia,
but she's like very positive, and I don't know her that well yet, but like I already love Greta so much.
Like when she was like, "No more pancakes, Greta," and Greta's like, "But there are more pancakes."
I know, but there are more pancakes.
And there's that conversation about like they could eat the moon or something like that. Their leader is the scientist lady, has to be like, "No, the moon is not a star." But like, how did she get these?
They haven't absorbed anything.
Yeah, like what is the state of humanity where this is not common?
There's not a lot of people left to pick from, Alex.
You gotta have Greta.
Oh god,
it's trying to balance out the harsh Dr. Amelia, I think, is the purpose. But,
yeah, exactly. But Greta's like amazing.
I'd like to see more specifics in the last season. Like once we're getting into Dr. Amelia, like this is a weird combination of pieces. So let's dive into that. Yeah. Okay. We talked about animation not jumping out as much. I mentioned the sword fighting scene is a potential one that stood out. I think there's episode 3 or the cappuccino episode. I think there's the fight scene there is pretty dynamic too. Any other favorite animation scenes that jump out?
Kipo transformation, first time and second time.
You guys mentioned Kipo transformations too. And the animation with Kipo as the Jaguar. Yeah.
And just Kipo with your mom. I mean, like all that stuff just is very like tender and really well.
And it's also like they're very interesting shots because her mom is so large and Kipo is so small.
Yeah.
That intro of the Deathstalker episode was pretty nifty. Like the way like you're introduced to like how Deathstalkers work, which is like detecting heartbeats.
Oh yeah, the heartbeat.
The style.
And then like it ends with like Little Wolf like ambushing this Deathstalker, and like it happens off screen, but like you can hear the noise of her stabbing the Deathstalker. So like I enjoyed that intro was pretty well done too.
Yeah, I agree. Music, Heroes on Fire, big part of the season, episode 4.
It's a bop.
Yeah, it is a bop. It's so catchy. They're right.
It's a ballad.
It's good. It's definitely supposed to be a ballad, and it's like it integrates into the season very well. Like they use it as a big component of the season.
And then when Kipo's like, "It's our song," I was like, "Y'all already know."
Team song. That's so cute. And then it like really does become like
it's so good.
Their song. It's so good.
Me and my fiance have been singing it. It's a bop.
It's great. Down with Humans is the play song.
Also a bop.
It's also a bop. And then Play It in My Head is Hugo's version of the dad and Kipo song from season 1, right? And that's the youth. That was stood out to me listening to soundtrack for the season. The use in the episode though, like man, it's a powerful scene. They I noticed that on Spotify they updated the season 2 playlist with a lot of the other non like the licensed songs too. So a lot of those are on there, which is cool. But yeah, the music, it doesn't stand out as much, I guess, just because we were used to it. Maybe it seems as well done. I don't know if it's like not well done.
Yeah, I think it's subdued. It's just less.
Yeah, it's just subdued. It's like, again, it's like, it's not the priority of the season to wow you with the music, so they give that attention to more of the things happening necessarily than what you're hearing. Like, it's there to amplify the things you're watching than to be the thing that you notice the most out of everything else, I feel.
I think probably I'd agree with that, yeah.
Probably you agree. All right.
It's just no. I mean, I think it's good. It's just hard to tell. I think like we're talking about expectations.
Yeah, expectations changed also.
Yeah. So I mean, it's still definitely like the most notable, I think, use of music in modern animation. Still, even with this season. Any other comments on the music?
I still like the Scarlemagne waltz, like his like evil person theme. Like that's still the best piece of music in this season, even though it's from season 1.
They use a lot. King Hugo is from episode 8. That's an instrumental one I really like from that episode. Yeah, Michelle?
Oh, well, this was tangentially related to Scarlemagne. I was gonna say, like, I find it very interesting that Scarlemagne's whole like aesthetic and music is so tied to like European, like old school, like kingness, and that, like, I don't know, like I feel like the show is saying something about just like, you know, like Scarlemagne is like kind of like exhibiting a lot of like colonialist vibes, you know, for lack of a more thoughtful way of say that, and just the fact that like the new villain is also just like this blonde-haired, blue-eyed lady, like that can't be accidental, and those two things together just like, I don't know, it kind of flavors some of this, and I think that's very interesting and very well placed, frankly. But I'll never get over that aspect of Scarlett. I mean, I feel like part of his menace is that like he has this British accent and he has this very colonial kind of like idea of like control and like the history that comes with that, you know? It's just very interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting thought. Yeah, we're too late in to dive into that, but interesting to bring it. Are those your final thoughts, Michelle?
Oh, no. No, my final thoughts are, I hope there's more Jamak, and this was an amazing season, and I was so impressed with so much on display, and I'm like so incredibly excited for season 3. Like, I'm still like the heartbreak of losing so many great shows in the same like 4 months. Like,
it's so hard.
Yeah.
It is so much better to know that there's a show like this that's still like airing that I can latch onto now, because like it's super worth it.
Yeah, for now, unfortunately. For now, this ends too before long. Alex, final thoughts. You were I noticed you were fading.
It has
it's a long
been 2 hours, Alex.
It's a long
okay.
podcast.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I just, I wish I was as excited as you guys. I'm kind of just like, yeah. I got nothing. Sorry.
That's valid too. Okay.
That's okay.
Everyone, all reactions equally valid to Kipo. Delaney, what are your final thoughts?
I just love Kipo a lot, and really like a lot of what Michelle said. Like, it's nice to have this now that all of our other shows are over. But I'm also worried that like we're gonna get season 3 before the end of the year, and I'm gonna be like, what the heck am I supposed to do? Like, I'm just gonna have to survive on the scraps of Lumity I'm getting from the Owl House. Right. Like, but I really love Kipo. It's so good, and this show means a lot to me, and I'm just really appreciative of it. Like, there are a lot of shows that we've covered that have a lot of meaningful messages, but I think Kipo's might be one of the most meaningful, with the relationship between humans and animals, and I'm just really enjoying it. It's a great show.
Nice. Yeah, I love that point.
Oh, I have a final thought. Kipo found a karaoke machine, and that reminded me of the time I did karaoke with you people, and it was nice. And I missed that, and that was a big emotional connection for me.
Yay.
So, like, even though
we had Heroes on Fire to sing
in this show, which is like full fantasy, like there's nothing in the world that I could connect to. That was one where I was like, yeah, that's like real life. I miss that.
Aww.
Okay, we'll sing Heroes on Fire next. There's a karaoke version on the soundtrack too.
Dylan, can I have a second final thought that I just thought of?
Yes.
This is a very me thing, but when Yum Yum was like, "Oh yeah, we'll help you out," like I saw you turn into that jaguar, and like cat recognizes cat. Essentially, I was like, yes, yes. It was just very good.
Wait, Michelle, can you say the word jaguar?
Jaguar?
Yeah, okay. You say it like that. Okay.
How do people say it? Okay, I think
it's spelled UAR and not WIRE. So just jaguar.
People say it different ways. That's
because Charlemagne always said it like jaguar, which I was like, what?
Jaguar.
Yeah, well, the correct pronunciation is the British.
The thing is R, not ire.
So, like, how do you say jaguar?
Jaguar.
That's no, that's
I don't think anyone along. Okay, let's say again.
I'm just saying this is a common thing in football discussion because of the Jaguars of Jacksonville. So I am very sensitive to this.
Dialectal variation is valid. Let's Google for which states say which district.
Yeah, maybe this is just like a particular section of the country. I don't know.
That's tends to be how it works. Okay, I was going to comment on Michelle saying it's a Michelle thing, but now too we moved past that. But I was like, I think I say that too much. If Michelle's saying Michelle, okay, I apologize then if that's rubbed off. I have no thought. Okay, this is very long. We have a lot to say about Kipo. Let us know what you thought about Kipo in the comments. Overlyanimated.com, on youtube.com/overlyanimated, and subscribe to our Kipo feed to not miss any future Kipo podcast. Discuss with us on our Discord at overlyanimated.com/Discord Kipo channel. A lot of thoughts in there. And consider supporting us via Patreon, patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Cat Sass. There's a cat. And thank you to our patron executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, Needle, and Phonician. Is that Michelle's alt account? I don't know. We'll never know. The Cat Sass. Yeah. That's it. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye.